Here this Tuesday, I called President Obama's speech the speech to nowhere. It didn't cover anything new. We're going to continue doing this. We're going to continue doing that. We're going to continue our failed policies, apparently. Debbie Georgatos here to talk more about it, a political strategist, and see if I'm right or wrong. Debbie, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, okay, so he finally admitted that Fort Hood was a terrorist event. Okay, we got that out of it. And so what? Years later, and it means nothing. But at the end of the day, I didn't hear a new policy initiative. I didn't hear a new strategy. I didn't hear him lay out. And first of all, it was only a 13-minute speech. It was this big primetime speech, 13 minutes. Big deal. You know, you have a chance to cover real topics, to get to the heart of the issue. Here are the things we're going to lay out: A, B, C, D, E. Here's how we're going to combat terrorism. I got none of that.
I completely agree, and especially this Oval Office address was on the heels of the San Bernardino shooting, and in the middle of this whole controversy about bringing more and more Syrian refugees to America. I think the basic American wanted to hear, how, Mr. President, are you going to keep us safe on American soil? And you heard nothing in any way reassuring. In fact, what you heard was kind of a lecture on being to Americans, kind of a condescending, now let's not be discriminatory here. And I think that really grated on a lot of people.
No, I think it did, and I think that's why, you're seeing, Donald Trump started to fade a little bit here 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. Then these things happened. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he keeps playing the right note in this whole conversation and running for president, and now is saying that, listen, let's just suspend all immigration from all Muslim countries right now until we can figure out what we're doing. And you know what? Well, he's horrible. He's a racist. He's this. He's that. You know what? He's going to be in first place, and he's going to get elected if he continues to discuss that, because the silent majority agrees with that sentiment. They may not agree with Donald Trump on a lot of things, but they agree with him on immigration and how to protect this nation.
I have to agree with you, and it's funny because I think I've said before, I'm not particularly a Donald Trump supporter, but I do think that he has managed in this whole presidential election cycle to give voice to things that people don't get to say. In fact, they're a little bit afraid to say.
Absolutely.
And yeah, he says things that people are thinking, thank goodness someone's finally saying that. It's kind of amazing to me how many candidates, other presidential candidates, both sides of the aisle, just kind of in a tone-deaf way piled on Trump.
They're stumbling over themselves.
Media.
Yeah.
He can't say that. And American people are thinking, yes, thank you.
Well, and make no mistake, is Hillary Clinton is spending her time talking about gun control in the wake of a terrorist attack, the worst since 9/11 on American soil. She's talking about gun control and being nice to Muslims. You got Rubio and Bush and Christie and all these other guys. Well, you can't just attack Muslims like that. He's not attacking Muslims. He's saying, let's stop what we're doing, take a breath, and figure out what we do next. All right? And there's nothing wrong with that. When you've got a front page story here that the two terrorists in California picked up $28,000 from some unknown deposit just before they pulled this off, and that the Islamic State has targeted the refugee program to enter the United States, and we all know that, then maybe it's time to take a breath and figure out what we're doing.
Absolutely. Now, I want to share with you, Steve, you may have covered this in your show some other time, but with your listeners too. There was a meeting in Washington last week it was kind of spearheaded by this doctor, Zuhdi Jasser, who is a moderate American Muslim, and he's pulled together a group of moderate American Muslim leaders saying essentially, look, the problem is within Islam. We have radicals, and we have some of us who want to live peaceably in America, and so he's trying to issue a challenge essentially to say to fellow Muslims in America, we are going to have a law and order. We're going to follow America's law. We're not going to try to overthrow. We're not going to impose Sharia. Let's have moderate Islam in America. And it was such an opportunity for President Obama to say, look, we have a few moderate voices. Let's support them. But what this Jasser is acknowledging is the people who are committing jihad around the world, the people who did the jihadist act in San Bernardino, they are following Islamic teaching. They're not perverting it. They're following what the Quran says. So Jasser is saying, look, let's have an upsurge of...
Let's be honest about it. I mean, the fact of the matter is...
Sorry, go ahead.
It'd be more honest to call it Orthodox Islamic teaching, because that's what it is. And there was a great article in The Atlantic here recently talking about how, as the Islamic State is certainly Islamic. This whole notion that somehow it's not Islamic, come on, people, read a little bit.
Yes, And it makes people think, how out of touch is President Obama? Because what the people here in America are concerned about is, how do you, Mr. President, what's your vetting process that's good enough to determine people want to come here? Are they following Orthodox, to use your term, Orthodox Islam that says jihad must be committed by devout Muslims? Or are they the
by definition,
moderated Reformed Muslims? How do you know? And since you don't know, you should stop bringing them here.
Yeah, we're with Debbie Georgatos here on the phone. And one last thought, and then I have to run real quick. But here it is. I did some reading last night on the Immigration Act of 1952. And it basically says anybody that is subversive to the United States, anybody, any organization, cannot be admitted into the United States. Well, if you come in and you believe that Sharia law is more important than the Constitution, by law, that's in effect, you can't come into America. Debbie, I have to jump and run, but I greatly appreciate your input as always.
Steve, great to be on. Thank you, sir.
Debbie Georgatos here on the program. We're going to go to the hotline real quickly. We've got Frank.